Good morning, Tampa Bay. Good morning. What is going on? Happy Fired Up Friday edition, Channelside in the morning live on the Channelside Sports Network. You know me. I am Danny. Thank you for those who are tuning in this morning on the YouTube chat thread. We got to hear your guys' opinions on some of the stuff that went down last night. Henry Yoho will join us in a moment. We'll talk about the Bolts and Andre Vasilevsky stopping 54 or 2 depending on who you believe. Unfortunately, they couldn't get it done in the shootout against the Carolina Hurricanes. The Magic come up huge with a big win over the Golden State Warriors. We're going to wrap it up a little later on in the show and talk about Devin White, because that's the polarizing topic right now. That's what everybody wants to talk about. And is Devin White actually overrated, or is he not? I've got some numbers, and then I'll go through them, and I'll let you guys decide. But no better way to start a Friday edition of the show than talking about some Lightning hockey. Even though they were on the losing end, they still got a point. Henry, good morning, sir. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Hey, good morning.
Night?
Hey, yeah, good morning. Doing well. Yeah, it was a crazy one last night, but it's Friday now, so
That's it. That's all. I mean, yeah. End of the week. Got another opportunity again tomorrow to do it all over again. And like Coop said in the press conference last night, they've got a point in 6 out of the last 7 games. So I mean,
yeah,
that's the ultimate goal here, right? Is point as often as possible.
yeah, for sure. And it was a big victory to even get a point last night. I thought you already mentioned the large amount of shots on goal that they allowed, so I thought that they did pretty well to get a point out of it. They didn't have one of their best outings, but taking on one of the contenders in the Eastern Conference without having your top defenseman in there for the second straight game, I thought it was they did pretty well to get the point that they did. So can't complain too much.
Oh, definitely not. If I showed you the box score of the team stats, like without the scoreboard, and you see 55 to 26 in shots, 42 to 26 in face-off one. Like, you would not assume that this game went to a shootout, right? Like, you would assume it would have been like a 7-0, 7-1, 8-1 game in favor of whichever team was on that side that was just dominating the scoreboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just based on that alone, you would have thought that Carolina probably should have won in regulation, and much less that the Lightning were actually leading for much of the game. So a lot of that comes back to the goalie between the pipes for the Lightning. That was an example of what he can really do for you in the course of regular season. Maybe getting you some points that you may not have deserved otherwise.
Absolutely. And I mean, it moves them up now. They're in 3rd place in the Atlantic
Mm-hmm.
Division. So I mean, it would have been nice to get 2 points, right? But I mean, it would have been nice overall. Forget the 2 points, but just when you've got Vasy stopping 52 shots, like,
Mm-hmm.
man, you want to get that win for your goalie so damn bad. And just wasn't in the cards last night. If take a page out of John Cooper's book and just be very mellow and vanilla about it. Just like, hey, better team won.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and we got to talk about these jerseys too, Henry. We've got to talk about these reverse retro jerseys. What do you think about these jerseys?
Yeah, no, I think everyone kind of understands, especially off the original version of these that they wore previously, and then at the end of the '90s. I think everyone kind of agrees that their design is ultimately pretty ugly, and I think a lot of the feeling is that they're so bad that they're great. So ultimately, I think that they're fun. Obviously, people don't want to see them all the time, but this series of jerseys around the NHL, I think that they're fun. I think they're trying something new. Gets people talking about it. I enjoy it. But the look, it is what it is. I think it's fun. I think it's interesting. I give them credit for trying something new. So
It's definitely fun, that's for sure. I loved watching the video. You and I were talking about this yesterday. I loved watching the video where all the players are looking at it. They're like, "Why do we have flames on the sleeves?"
Yeah.
And you hear whoever's like behind the camera is like, "Oh, those are supposed to be lightning bolts." And they're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Well, I mean, the funny thing about it is like, you know, ultimately all of the players aren't from the area, and I think the number was they only wore this sort of jersey, the Storm jersey, like 6 times in the
Mhm.
1997-98 season, I believe it was. So I mean, most of those guys probably weren't following the Lightning too much, and even if they were, they probably didn't see the handful of times that those jerseys came up in the past. So they kind of went those jerseys kind of went into a corner of the worst jerseys of all time in the NHL. So
And
if you
they're
weren't
back,
paying attention,
baby.
yeah, if you weren't paying attention too much at the time, then you might have missed out on the cult classic that it's become.
And that I mean, I feel like that sums it up the best. It's like a cult classic. It's like it's so bad that it's good, right?
Hmm. Yeah, no,
Um,
it's the thing. It's just funny at this point. It's in kind of a class of jerseys around the NHL that people are just like, wow, that's um that's an all timer.
I feel like that might rank up there as like an all-timer among
Hmm.
all sports. If we're being like if you think about it, like especially the NHL, right? Like even like some of those oddball jerseys that you'd see like other teams wear, they were never that different from their normal jersey. They might have had a different font or something, but these jerseys for the reverse retro are just like all over the place and it's great. It's like one of those ugly I associate it to me it's like an early 90s. I know that's before your time. But
Yeah,
it's
right.
like to me, it's to me, it's early 90s. Where like if you watch like the intro of Saved by the Bell and you see like all the squigglies and all that kind of stuff going through, and you're like, oh, that's what that reminds me of. So I dig them. I think they're beautifully ugly, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. But I dig them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's part of the feeling. The I guess the craziest element's always been the sleeves and the color. Having yellow on the jerseys is just so far out there, and not many. In the recent history of sports, you're not really seeing too many designs as far as down the sleeves go. So I think that's just probably the most interesting element of it, and you know, it's a kind of become a fan favorite, over the years with this franchise.
Absolutely. And I'm glad they're back. As much as I love the regular jerseys or I love
Hmm.
the early jerseys that everybody is always clamoring to get back. Like how can we get those back more often? Like the early black jerseys, right? These are just so much more fun.
Hmm.
They just are. Speaking of fun, what was it like? What was the atmosphere like in the locker room after a tough loss when Andre Vasilevsky has 50 stops, 52 if you want to be exact. But like what's the atmosphere like in the locker room following a tough loss like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, some disappointment to squander a great performance from your goaltender like that. It's not every night you're going to see 50 saves being made by anybody, and the fact that just something small here or there could have made the difference between winning in regulation or not, and especially considering the way that they surrendered the tying goal in regulation in the last 10 minutes was a shorthanded goal after they had gotten a pretty late power play that could have given them a chance to put the game sort of out of reach, and given them the full 2 points early on. I think that was a disappointing thing just because they were in position to win despite giving up so many shots on goal. So it was disappointing to surrender a pretty good opportunity that they had in front of them.
I noticed when they were doing the shootout, Sebastian Ahos, it looked like he just stopped altogether. Like it was such
Hmm.
a is like the term lull him to sleep, right? It's like he put Vazzy
Yeah.
to sleep in front of the net because he just essentially stopped and he wrapped it around to the blocker side so slowly that you're just like, oh, there's no way
Mhm.
this is going in. And I think that's probably what's going through Vasy's mind as well. And then it's the back of the net.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree that that's almost really one of the only ways that you can beat him in a shootout because he's obviously incredibly patient and he's so great at just swallowing up the bottom of the net that you gotta somehow try to get him uncomfortable and try to slow it down even more. And it's not too often he really gets beaten in a shootout that much. So that seems to be one way to do it. But not many players in the league have sort of the skill level, the hands, and the patience to make that sort of move. So yeah, Naho is one of the players that can do that. So you know, it was a good move, and they ended up getting a pretty well deserved win for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, for the way that they played the game, Coop hit it. He hit it the nail right on the head. It was the better team that won. The Lightning,
Mhm.
but this is very much Tampa Bay Lightning style hockey, right? Is they can be completely dominated in the stat sheet and still be in the game or win the game because that's how they play, right? Like they're usually when you use this analogy, it's in a negative connotation, right? But it's not. It's like they're a cockroach, right? Like they just don't go away. If you're the opposing team, you're like, what do we have to do to put this damn team away? We can't get past them. Where we've doubled them up in face-offs, we've almost tripled them in shots, and they won't go away. And here we are in a shootout with them.
Mhm.
Like it to me, it's great to see as a Lightning fan, it's great to see this team be absolutely dominated in a game and still take it all the way to a shootout. I think that was the big takeaway for me from this game was how much the ice was slanted in one direction, but they were still in the game, literally
Mhm.
to the very end.
Yeah, yeah. No, sort of games like this haven't been uncommon over the last handful of years with this team, and that's sort of the nature of an 82 game season. Is you're going to have that happen to you here and there, especially against one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, and that's just the way it goes sometimes, and that's why you've got the best goaltender. You're paying him the big money to maybe steal a point or two as you go through the year. So that was the case in this one, and yeah, it was a tough team they're up against. There's no doubt about it. Um, Carolina is a really tough team to play against, and they racked up the shots on goal. They're shooting from everywhere. That's been the case ever since Rod Brindamore has been there. Is they're always among the top teams in the shots on goal department. So yeah, they're just a tough team to play against.
Cooch's point streak continues. He's now at 9 games with a point. Um, and I think he's at what five out of those 9
Yeah.
games. He's got a goal in them now. Like, how important is that for the team? Stammer obviously had another point as well with the assist. Like, how important is it for this team to keep those guys going? Because I feel like when your core, especially in hockey, maybe more so than any other sport, when your core players are rolling, it's infectious, man. It just rolls
hmm
through everybody.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the past handful of games, it's been the top couple guys getting things going, and it definitely has a trickle down effect through the lineup. We got Kucherov on the board. I believe it is a 5 game goal streak as well, and we've seen last night we saw Ross Colton and Nick Paul sort of getting in on the scoring action as well, which was big. And even despite some of the frustrations with the power play, the last 2 games they ended up still getting 2 goals on the power play last night, so that was big. And obviously, your stars are a huge important factor in that. So you know, if they've got the top guys going, along with the goaltender, of course, then they're always going to have a chance to win every single game.
They definitely are. They got the Sabres on Saturday.
Mhm.
The Sabres are kind of a surprise team, at least early on in the season.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, as you know, and all of our listeners know, we do this Monday through Friday. So, what are we looking forward to um, going against the Sabres? Or is this just like a kind of a completely different beast than any of us expected this team to be early on in the season?
Yeah, Saturday is going to be a real challenge. This Buffalo team has gotten off to a pretty impressive start to the season. They're a pretty young, confident, powerful group that they've got going there, and they're feeling good about the way that they've started the season, rightfully so, because the expectations were not particularly high, as they haven't really been there for quite a long time now. And they've had some good starts over the past few years. In the first couple of months, where things have kind of come off the rails later on in the season. But yeah, it'll certainly be a challenge. They've got a young group, and they don't really have anything to lose because the expectations weren't particularly high, and it kind of reminds you of some a couple of years ago, Buffalo. I believe it was the 2018-19 season. They came in here riding a 10-game win streak, and they were tops in the Atlantic Division. And they came in here. It was a big collision in the Atlantic Division, and their season kind of went south from there. But some hot starts to the season haven't been too unfamiliar to Buffalo, so it's a great challenge to have early on in the season.
I think what's indicative of the Buffalo Sabres. So if you go, Emily Kaplan just released her power rankings this morning, and the Buffalo Sabres were 14th, and now they're up to 12th.
Yeah,
and it's a weird situation to me. It's like I think it's because nobody expected them to be like where they are, right? And it's kind of like let's be a little conservative with where we're going to put them in our power rankings. Because if you look at the Lightning, they were 20th, and now they're all the way up to 7th.
yeah.
It's a weird dynamic to me, and I think you're right when you say the Sabres team has nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
The expectations are different. You talk about a team like the Detroit Red Wings, their expectations were low, but they're playing very good hockey right now, right? And they don't look like a team that's getting lucky. So those expectations have changed. Maybe the Sabres expectations need to change to like, hey, this is actually a formidable club now, and we've got to actually pay attention. This isn't like a quote unquote night off for the guys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, in years past, Buffalo has been sort of a night off in the past. And yeah, you mentioned like the power rankings. I think that just kind of reflects the feeling is like, oh, the Lightning are winning, on a win streak. Like, yeah, they're a good team. That for a fact. Buffalo probably started pretty low in those power rankings, so it makes it a little difficult to make up ground to really gain that respect, and it takes a bit of time. But yeah, it's a great challenge with a team that's got a lot of young players, and they're just riding a wave of confidence that they've got right now, and the expectations are the biggest thing, just because they weren't particularly high, so they're just going right now.
How excited do you think the Pagula family is that the Sabres are doing good? They own the Bills. Obviously, the
Yeah,
Bills are likely to win the Super Bowl. And oh, by the way, their daughter Jessica is a pretty damn good tennis player as well. Like, this is just a family right now, at least that's got all of everything going in their direction for sports. It's actually kind of cool to see.
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, things are going pretty well there right now, and Buffalo's, or the Sabres at least, have been sort of the punching bag of not getting as much attention, or not doing as well relative to the recent reascension of the Bills. So it's nice to see the Sabres have some success, because they haven't had much of it in the past 20 years. So it's a great group of fans there, and they certainly deserve to have something to root for besides their position in the draft lottery.
One thing that I noticed about the Sabres when we look ahead to tomorrow's game is something that you and I talked about before the Ottawa game, is that the Senators, I think at that point, were scoring like 3.43 goals per game, which was third in the NHL. The Sabres are at 4.3 goals per game. Is this a game? I'm not sure if there's been any announcement made or anything. Are we playing Vasy after he had a 52 save night, or are they going to have Brian Elliott in net to try and like let Vasy recoup? Because either way, there's probably going to be a barrage of shots heading at the net again on Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's an interesting thought. I think the expectation is at the moment that Vasy will be in the net. We might get a better idea of that after today's practice, but yeah, I expect Vasy to be in there again. Uh, I think Elliott's made 3 starts this season, and he's been pretty strong in them. All 3 of them have been on the second end of back-to-backs. So it'd be interesting to see what point he goes in and gets a start that's not a back-to-back. I'm not sure if the opportunity is there yet, but I think Vasilevsky will likely be in there, considering you know the time off in between games. So I think that's the expectation. It will certainly be a challenge, as you mentioned, with this pretty high end offense that started off the season. So yeah, that's what's been helping win them games because their goaltending hasn't is definitely one of the question marks, and we'll see if it can hold up over the course of the season.
Yeah, when you start out hot and you set your expectations high, like that's why as bad as it was, as frustrating as it was for a fan to look at this Lightning team and be like, guys, what are we doing here? Why can't we get these? They started out what 0-2 and then 1 and
Hmm.
2, and you're like, why are they playing so poorly? I was okay with that because I want these problems at the beginning of the season, not in the latter half of the season. I want everything to be smooth sailing as we assume the Lightning are going to head into the playoffs. And, if you're a team like the Sabres or you're a team like the Senators, where you've come out and you're not supposed to be good, but all of a sudden you're towards, the top of your division and you're leading or at least the top 2, top 3 team in multiple team metrics, that's got to be a great feeling, and I like the Lightning flying under the radar because we know that the Lightning are good. We know that they're
Hmm.
going to get to the playoffs and we know that they can win when they're in the playoffs. So as long as, I don't care about the President's Trophy, right? Ask the Florida Panthers how that's working out for them, right? Like, how many times do you see a President's Trophy winner not win
Hmm.
the Stanley Cup or get eliminated the first, second round, right? Like, I'm okay flying under the radar.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think the Lightning are perfectly fine with that as well. You know, I think the team is ultimately so good that they can overcome any stretch of 4 or 5 bad games, whatever it is. And I've almost become a believer in sort of wanting some struggles along the way. I think it helps you complete your game. It toughens you up a bit. You know how to get through some hard times. Obviously the well documented example is the 2019 season. Lightning had the greatest regular season of all time, basically, and didn't end up winning in the playoffs because the regular season ultimately became too easy. They were able to fly through games, and they could win everything, outscoring all of their um, inefficiencies. And so, I ever since then I've become sort of a rooter for some struggles along the way to sort of harden your team because obviously the talent is definitely there, and they can get through any poor stretch of the season. But I think that having that adversity along the way is definitely important. I don't think it does anybody real favors to really sort of cruise comfortably through the regular season.
And we talked about overcoming adversity, the season becoming too easy. We
Hmm.
obviously we knew that we had injuries coming into the season. And we're getting some good injury news coming out of Tampa. We had Sorelli was on the ice, full-time part or full practice participant yesterday. Which means he's in line with when he's supposed to return because we were expecting, I think, a late November return for him.
Hmm.
Um, if you've got Sorelli and you've got Hedman out there, because obviously Hedman not playing last night was that's a huge knock on your defense. It's an all time defenseman right there, and probably
Yeah,
what a top 1, 2 in the league. Maybe
for
maybe
sure.
two. I'll give him two. Think we have
Yeah,
to. Think we have to give Sakar his due right now.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but that's a huge slight. And then you look at the box score and go, okay, well, if we were healthy, and do we get completely obliterated in shots? And face-offs are probably going to stay the same, right? But do we have 52 shots on net if we've got these two guys in there? I'm inclined to say we don't, but there's no real way of knowing that, I suppose.
Hmm. Yeah, no, having Hedman out there would definitely make a difference. I mean, that's about 25 minutes a game in ice time that you're losing and trying to make up with the rest of the group. So, yeah, I mean, you never root for injuries. You never want guys to get hurt, but I always sometimes say that injuries to your top guys, assuming it's not long term, can definitely be a positive thing in that, new people are able to step up into bigger roles, learn how to play in different parts of the lineup. And then whenever you do get those pieces back, like Hedman at some point, Sorelli will be a huge injection, and Zach Bogosian as well. I think that's just a bonus and gives you a boost whenever those guys come back. So, the light that can be the case for the Lightning more so than other teams, just because they're so good, and you're not really afraid if you're not going to miss important pieces for long term.
I'm definitely with you. Before we let you roll, I want to hear: are you picking the Rams or are you picking the Bucks to win on Sunday, and why?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would have you got to roll with the Bucks, but I mean, you got to think that they can get out of this losing skid. I feel like there's too much there for this to go on anymore. But I feel like we've been saying that each week. But I don't see how this can keep going on like this. Obviously, it's a tough opponent, but you got to think that at some point they can get a win here. The team has too many good pieces in place.
They definitely do. I wanted to get the hockey
Yeah.
guys' opinion on what was going to happen here, because it's
Roll Bucks
fuddled.
on Sunday, man. We need something from our home team.
If they fall to 3-6, there's a chance that they come out of this week in third place in the NFC South. In the weakest division, the team that was favored to go to the Super Bowl for the NFC could be third place in the weakest division in football, which is crazy to even fathom that we're having this conversation 9 weeks into the football season.
Yeah, no, it's wild. They've been pretty fortunate with the way the rest of the division is that they still have a chance. So, yeah, we need to see a win. We need to have something to be excited about with our Bucks, because it's been all pretty bad lately.
Yeah, not so hot. Henry, we appreciate it. As always, my friend, thank you for coming on. Look forward to seeing everything that happens this weekend between the Sabres and the Lightning. Obviously, I think you and I are going to link up on Tuesday for the Oilers and Lightning game. But enjoy and go Bucks, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's hope for a good weekend.
All right, man. Henry, thank you very much for joining. We're going to jump into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but before we do, we're going to take a quick little break from our sponsor.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Hey guys, it's Danny for BetUS. Go to betus.com and open up an account. Use the promo code Channelside. They're going to get you 125% deposit bonus. No cap. On no cap. There's no limit. 125% bonus on any deposit that you make on a new account on betus.com. If you like your odds of the Buccaneers winning the division right now, they're minus 135. They're still the favorites, although the Falcons are closing in. They're plus 225. If you like the odds, throw down a bet. Most trusted source for 3 decades. Go to betus.com and tell them Channelside Sports sent you. We've got to talk about it. You guys saw the headline. And before we even get into it, Loose Cannon Leprechaun, the Bucks look like my fantasy team. Dude, if I told you my fantasy team, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to pull this up real quick. I'm going to pull up my fantasy team. My fantasy team is Jalen Hurts, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, TJ Hawkinson, Alan Lazard, the Eagles defense, Ezekiel Elliott, and this is my bench, of course, right now. George Kittle. I have the Bucks D, I'm assuming at some point they're going to come back on. Gus Edwards, Kadarius Toney, Cordero Patterson, Zach Ertz, and Jamison Williams. I have only won 2 games with this squad, my friend. 2 games. That is all that I've won with this squad. And it's absolutely brutal. I don't know why. Yeah, terrible times. But what I wanted to discuss is Devin White is clearly the most polarizing player in Tampa Bay right now, right? Clearly the most polarizing player. And a lot of people are asking, is Devin White overrated? And you've got a lot of people that are, and this is what makes him polarizing, right? Is because some people are going, absolutely not. Some people are saying, absolutely, he is. I'm not going to pull it up for you because I don't know what the rule is on paywalls and things like that. But if you go to Pro Football Focus and you rank overall linebackers straight by defense, to get Devin White on your screen, you've got to filter all the way down to 80% of 555 snaps, which is the most snaps. Who has registered that? Jordan Brooks for the Seahawks has registered the most snaps from any linebacker. You have to filter to 80% of that. And then you get Devin White, who finally cracks the top 30. Devin White is the 29th ranked linebacker, filtered all the way down with a 36.8 grade on defense and a 29.4 grade for run stopping. So while we're giving all of this flack to our defensive line, we've got our captain at a 29.4 grade. 36.8 grade. Now, somebody's sitting there going, oh, well, it's just a bunch of guys. I don't trust those grades. But then when I tell you that Levante David is the 2nd ranked linebacker, all of a sudden that it's the greatest thing, right? They got that one right? They got that right, but they're getting Devin White wrong. That's not the case, guys. 36.8%. That's ranked lower than Alex Anzalone. I used this analogy yesterday. I wanted to, because I want people that are on one side of the Devin White spectrum to answer this question for me. Is Devin White a great linebacker? Because people that are defending Devin White currently are saying he is a great linebacker. Okay, fine. Is Alex Anzalone a great linebacker? Alex Anzalone's got a 51.3 grade. Alex Anzalone, the last 2 seasons, has finished higher than Devin White. I don't care about I don't care about the box score. I care about everything. Right? Somebody told me that missed tackles for a linebacker are a next-gen stat and should not be considered when talking about the greatness of a linebacker. Your job as a linebacker is to make a freaking tackle. That's your job as a linebacker. So don't tell me it's a next-gen stat and it does not matter, because it very much matters. It 100% matters. If you want to sort your sheet by missed tackles, Devin White has the 4th missed tackles with 9. He's missing tackles at a rate of 13.4%, which is top 4 again. So is Devin White overrated? If we're talking about a long-term contract, yes, Devin White is overrated. Devin White is not a top dollar linebacker, right? I'm going to compare the Devin White situation to the TJ Hawkinson situation that the Detroit Lions were experiencing, right? He's had a couple really, really great games. He had a good rookie season. He also had Matthew Stafford, but he had a couple really, really great games, near 200-yard receiving games. But was he worth the $9 million option that the Lions would have had to pay to keep him? The answer is no, he's not. Is Devin White worth the money that he's going to want and demand for the Buccaneers to keep him? I don't think he is. That's not a knock on him as a player, but it's a business at the end of the day. Is Devin White worth the money that he's going to want to be paid? From what we've seen these last 2 seasons, that answer is no. I've been on record plenty of times saying Devin White's rookie season was so damn good that he set the bar too high for himself, and that was detrimental to where he was going to go in terms of his projections. And we're seeing that play out right now, which is why he's so polarizing. Yeah, he's having a bad season. Devin White is graded higher this season than he was last season, just for the record. So we can't chalk it up to, oh, he's just having a bad season. We've got to be realistic about it. The salary cap hell is coming for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. They're going to need to shed money. It's not the same situation as what the New Orleans Saints was. The New Orleans Saints were $71 million in the hole, but they had everybody that they needed. That's the difference between where the Bucs are and where the Saints were. This is where we need to look at and say, okay, how are we going to shed this money? How are we going to move dollars? Is Devin White's win above replacement that much higher to where you say, yeah, we have to keep him? Levante David is through the roof, right? Levante David is about to be a free man. You got to re-sign Levante David. Unless he's going to retire, you need to make sure that Levante David is on your team. I don't think he wants to go anywhere, but I do know that there are a lot of teams that have their eyes on him because A, he is a great leader, and B, he is a tremendous linebacker. Even this late in his career, he is still a damn good linebacker. So is Devin White the money that he's going to command? Look at what happened with Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette commanded top 5 running back money. This is what I want. I need top 5. I'm testing free agency because I deserve a top 5 salary. And how is he doing right now? Top 20? Not even. He's a top 10 in terms of contract, but he's not top 10 in terms of production. And it's all relative. It's all relative at the end of the day. We need to spend money and be smart about spending money. If we believed in Rachaad White, we honestly should have moved on. From Leonard Fournette before the trade deadline. Shed those dollars. You're already a top 7 draft team. The chances of you making the Super Bowl as right now as a 3-5 team is 0% because nobody has ever done it. Now I know somebody's sitting there going, "Oh, we'll be the first. We were the first to play in our own hometown or in our home stadium. We're going to be the first to come back and do this." And that's great to have the optimism, but you have to reel it in a little bit and be realistic at the end of the day. As talented as this team is, this Buccaneers team as a team is not good because they're not playing as a team. Maybe that changes. I don't know if you guys watched Tom Brady's press conference yesterday, but when he came out, he had a different energy about him. He looked different. He looked energized. He looked happier. He was smiling. He was more talkative. And maybe that's something to take note of, right? Like now the weight's off his shoulders, all the personal stuff. He's still working through it, but the big bulk of it is behind him now. Maybe this is where we're going to go. if we're the Buccaneers. Maybe that's what we needed. People keep showing me Tom Brady's passing yards. Tom Brady's passing yards. Let me show you Matthew Stafford's passing yards from Detroit. How many times did he even make the playoffs? How many playoff wins did Matthew Stafford have in Detroit with all of those yards? Right? Don't show me empty stats and tell me that everything is okay. Don't tell me that a passer rating is a next gen stat because it's very relative. Don't tell me that, we can't pick and choose what matters. If stats didn't matter, they would not be tracked. It doesn't matter what stat you want to pick, what stat you want to remove. If it didn't matter, it would not be tracked, it would not be calculated, and it would not be counted. If Pro Football Focus didn't matter, Sunday Night Football would not use Pro Football Focus. So don't tell me that they don't matter simply because one of your favorite players is not performing well. That doesn't mean that Devin White's a bum. It doesn't mean that he's a bad player. But I would say that Devin White is an overrated linebacker because he's going to want a lot of money and he's not worth a lot of money. He's worth mid-tier money. That's where his statistics and his numbers lie, is mid-range and mid-tier. Again, not a knock on him. Some people will take it as a knock. I can only give you the information. You can only receive the information however the hell you want. Julio Jones practiced yesterday, full practice, which was great. Wednesday is his designated day off. That's why I said we shouldn't put a lot of stock into Julio Jones not practicing at all. So it was great to see that Julio is likely going to be on the field for the Rams game. And look, Lord knows that we're going to need all of the help that we can get. Especially, we might need to run 2 running back sets and have both Fournette and Rashad White in there helping Tom Brady keep that pocket clean, because he's going to be stressed out a lot with that defensive front of the Los Angeles Rams. It's going to be a tough day. Shaq Mason practiced again, but he's still laboring that ankle. Ankles don't just heal themselves. Nick Leverett filled in well last week, which was a great step, which makes me look at Todd Bowles and say, why did we not make this move any earlier? Luke Gedeke has struggled all season. He struggled for all 7 games he started, and we never made that move. Why did we not make that move? Why did we not have Nick Leverett starting over Luke Gedeke after he struggled 3 weeks into the season? Even when we ran through the Cowboys 19-3, Luke Gedeke struggled and was still the last ranked offensive lineman in the NFL. So why did we not make that move sooner? It's problematic. I'm not a fan of staying the course for such a long time when things aren't working. You have to shake things up. Look at the lineup that the Magic are using last night. We saw Bowl. We saw Wendell Carter Jr. We saw Paulo Banchero, Jalen Suggs, and Franz Wagner all in the same lineup at one point last night, because Jamal Mosley understands things aren't working. We got to shake it up, and we've got to give different looks. All of these guys can stretch the floor. Now you're in trouble because we've got bigs that can stretch the floor, and not just 1 or 2, all of them. The guy who's bringing the ball up all the way up to our center, all of them can stretch the floor. Now you're in trouble. And Bowl is stepping up, and he's playing very well right now. The Magic got their bench production, and it looked great. They're playing team ball, where the Bucs are not playing team ball, and it's showing. And this is the struggle that we're seeing right now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Luckily for them, they're playing a team that is experiencing the exact same thing. I wouldn't say that the Rams aren't playing team ball. They're just playing very confused. That's what it is. They're playing very confused. And I'm having a difficult time understanding where things are going wrong for the Los Angeles Rams. We know they can't run the ball, but to be fair, we can't run the ball either. So maybe that's why they're struggling as well, because they're such a one-dimensional team. But also at the end of the day, Matthew Stafford knows what it's like to be on a team that can't run the ball. That was basically his entire existence in Detroit, right? Like that was his entire existence in Detroit. So who knows? We'll see. Tom Brady did not practice yesterday. That was considered his rest day. So don't put any stock into Tom Brady not practicing. We know Lou Gedeke is injured with that foot. Hasn't logged a practice all week, which is to me is a-okay because he's struggling anyway. Cam Akers. Here's something that I find very interesting is Cam Akers actually logged a full practice for the first time in nearly 2 weeks for personal reasons. We know there's some sort of beef between him and the Los Angeles Rams, whether it's the coaching staff, the front office, or both. We know there's some sort of problem there. I would have loved to have traded Leonard Fournette to get Cam Akers. Cam Akers is younger. He is still unproven, and he's costing a lot less money than Leonard Fournette does to virtually give you the same output that Fournette's giving you for 3 times the amount of salary. Van Jefferson also had a limited practice again with the knee. Cooper Kupp was back at practice in limited fashion yesterday. You never want to play against a guy like Cooper Kupp. That's the problem. When everybody knows that Cooper Kupp is going to get targeted, everybody knows that he's going to get the ball, and yet he still always finds himself open and always gets everything. He's always open. He's always targeted. He's always snatching 7+ receptions every single game. And we know that he's going to get the ball. We know that that's going to happen. So it's like, it's a weird dynamic for Cooper Kupp to not for him to have a bad game. Right. And him being on the field makes all the difference for the Rams. The possibility of Cam Akers playing is huge because he's head and shoulders better than Darrell Henderson is. Head and shoulders better. So if you're looking at the Rams team and going, okay, well, if they're basically fully healthy, Antoine Winfield limited practice yesterday, great. Julio full practice, like I said earlier, that I'm happy for that. Limited for Shaq Mason. We're going to need Shaq Mason fully healthy. We can't rely solely on Tristan Wirfs to stop all 5 guys plus any extra men that they're sending. Like we can't hope for that and worry about that. It's going to be scary. Our secondary is basically fully healthy now. Carlton Davis all week so far, full practice. Same with Sean Murphy-Bunting. We'll have to see if Antoine Winfield clears concussion protocol today. If not, he does have the ability to clear it on Saturday before the final rosters are due. So we'll see if he's able to play. But I mean, it's going to be a tough game regardless because you're going against Cooper Kupp and you can't stop Cooper Kupp. You can't stop the chemistry between Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. I would be willing to die on the hill. And this is, and it hurts to say, but the pairing of Stafford and Kupp is better than the pairing of Stafford and Megatron. It's a better duo. You would see Calvin Johnson have some games with 3 receptions. You never, ever, ever see Cooper Kupp be completely shut down. And I know Calvin Johnson was triple teamed at some points, and I totally understand that. But we do have the ability now because that was in the past of using hindsight. And, when you've got a freakishly sized athlete like you do Calvin Johnson, where he's 6 inches, 7 inches taller than most of the guys that he's playing against, it does make it a hell of a lot easier to make those difficult 50-50 balls, which kind of turn into like 90-10 balls, right? But I would be willing to die on the hill. As somebody who grew up as a Detroit Lions fan, I would be willing to die on the hill that Cup and Stafford make a better tandem than Stafford and Megatron did. 10 minutes left. You know what the deal is. Magic time. Trying to implement the magic more. It's difficult. And you got to remember, guys, if we're going, eventually we'll have a full-time co-host. Eventually we're going to be going through all of this, which means we're likely going to start being 2 hours. Huge win for the Magic last night. 130-129 over the Golden State Warriors. It was a very, very scary game at the end. Paulo Banchero had a costly turnover, and I really thought that was going to cost them the game. Jalen Suggs had the opportunity to put it away, only hit 1 of 2 free throws, and I'm sitting there looking at I'm looking at it going, here we go. This team battled back from down 16 points in the third quarter to only it was just I thought it was going to slip away. Battling all the way back like they did was very, very impressive. It showed a lot of poise. They shot 53% from the field. That's huge. 46 free throw attempts. I know there's Warriors fans going 46 free throw attempts. Like, come on. They play inside a lot. They play inside. They only shot 33s, which sounds crazy, but when you're going against the Warriors, you kind of need to start adopting and playing similarly to how the Golden State Warriors play, because 3 points every time down the floor is going to outweigh your 2 points every time down the floor. They were clean in terms of fouls. They had 22 fouls, 10 less than the Warriors. Everything that Jamal Mosley has been preaching in press conferences and in practices is starting to play out. And this could not be a better start for the home stand that the Orlando Magic are going to have. There's nothing better than starting out and beating one of the best teams in the NBA. There's really not. Talk about turnovers. They had more turnovers than the Warriors, but they calmed it down. They had 19 turnovers. But what they did is they converted the 14 turnovers by the Golden State Warriors into 27 points, and they limited their 19 turnovers to 23 points off turnovers for the Warriors. That works for me. They out rebounded. They're playing smart team basketball. I still want to see them moving the ball and swinging the ball a little bit more. They only had 20 assists as a unit. But I want to see I want to see better ball movement. This team has a lot of chemistry. This team has a lot of chemistry together. But only having 20 assists per game to me is still showing that they're still trying to figure out how to play together. And as long as that number just improves and we see improvement, I'm okay with that. Jalen Suggs leads the way with 26 points, 9 assists. So, I mean, you take away Jalen Suggs, right? And you're talking about an 11 assist box score. You can't have that, right? The big difference for me in this game is I've been harping on this for all 9 games right now, is bench production. We need more production from the bench once we start rotating players in. What did we see last night? OKK, 16 points. RJ Hampton, 15 points. Harris, 12 points. 9 rebounds, 5 rebounds. We had some assists off the bench, and we started seeing everything that we need to see from the bench. To me, that's the difference. When you look at your bench plus minus versus the Warriors bench plus minus, I'll run down the list of our guys on the bench. Plus 13 for OKK. Caleb Houston, plus 11. Mo Bamba, minus 4. RJ Hampton, plus 6. And Harris, plus 12. That's the production that you want from your bench. You want your bench outplaying. Remember the Sacramento Kings in the early 2000s, right? They're bench mob. That's what they call it. They were the bench mob because when they started subbing in John Barry and they started subbing in, who else came off of the bench for the? I'm trying to think of other guys that came off of the bench for the Kings. Scott Pollard, right? That was the bench mob. That's what they were dubbed because they were so good at not stalling out what was already going. That's what I want this Magic team to turn into. They're so young. They've got so much going for them. They could turn into something special, in my opinion. And they could turn into something that much greater to where when you've got Ben Carroll and you've got Dell coming out and you've got all of your starters coming out, that the other coach is like, here we go. Here come these guys, these scrappy young guys coming out. They're going to shoot the lights out. They're going to play solid, hard defense. They're going to create havoc and cause chaos and turnovers for our team because that's how they play. Fundamentally sound because we know that's what Jamal Mosley wants. Jamal Mosley wants a fundamentally sound team, and I totally agree with him. That's what I want. But I want them to ramp that up on the bench, and I want to see these guys come in and really just dig their heels in and not, you're not always going to see plus 16 nights from your bench players, right? You're not always going to see that. But when you've got a young team and almost everybody is vying for an opportunity on this team, and I think that's the important key for this Magic team is everybody is vying for that opportunity. There's nothing that's fully set in stone with this team. We've seen different lineups this season already. We've seen different starting lineups last season. There's nothing that is fully 100% like set in stone. Sure, maybe Franz is always going to start, and maybe Paulo's always going to start, right? Dell's probably, but you're going to have like different rotations all the time. Nothing is fully set. And it's enticing to see guys vie for that starting role. Like, what help? Markelle Fultz is in a smaller boot now. He's been taking it off and he's been putting and practicing. He's been putting it on and practicing. He's not ready. He's not fully cleared for full practice. He's been doing individual drills of practice, but he's on his way back. What does that look like when he's back and Cole Anthony's there and Jalen Suggs is there? When Mo Wagner comes back, how's that going to look? When Isaac is back, how's that going to look? You've got such a group of guys that all have something to prove. And that's what makes this team special is everybody is out to prove that they are better than their position. Some guys just fall in line and are good and they're good soldiers, right? That's how some guys play. I know what my role is. I'm the sixth man. I'm the seventh, eighth, whatever. But when you've got guys that are sitting on the bench going, damn, why am I seven? Why am I six? I want to be starting. They're going to play that much better. That's what excites me about this Magic team. That's going to do it for us on this Friday edition of Channelside in the morning. You guys all have a fantastic weekend. Thank you for those who tuned in. Thank you, Henry, for joining us on the show, talking some Bolts. Exciting weekend of sports. We've got the Magic again. They're playing again over the weekend. We've got the Bolts and the Sabres tomorrow. And then, of course, we've got the Rams and Buccaneers Sunday, late game, 4:25 kickoff. And we'll see if they can stop this because if they can stop this slide, because it's going to be very scary if they cannot get this W on Sunday. Make sure you're following Channelside on all of these social media platforms and search for the Channelside Sports Network. Again, thank you for those who tuned in. Thank you for those who are going to watch the replay later. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. I am Danny. We'll do it all over again on Monday. See ya.